All right, here we go. We're gonna merge onto the highway. No fairing. Alright everybody, what is up as always? Thanks for stopping by to another video today. As you can see, we are here with my 2022 Harley Davidson Softail Street Bob, and today we're talking a little bit about the Memphis Shades fairing that I have on this bike here. One of the very biggest questions I always get about the bike and the fairing is, does it help to actually block any wind? And does it cause any wind buffeting, that crazy vibration type of stuff that a lot of people talk about with certain fairings on their bikes, that sometimes different size screens, fairings, and things like that can sometimes cause. So I have had this Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing with the cafe screen on the bike pretty much almost for the life of the bike. I've had it on there for pretty much the whole 21,000 miles so far. And I did try several different screens until I finally settled on this cafe screen that really worked out well for me. I tried an 11-inch. I tried a 9-inch vented. All of them gave me pretty bad buffeting issues, vibration on the top of the helmet, until I finally settled on this cafe screen, which has worked great for me. But like I said, I get asked so many questions about, does this actually block wind? And my general answer is just always kind of like yes. But like I said, I always get the question, what is it like riding with this? What is it like as far as actual real blocking of wind or wind protection? And I've been riding with it for so long now, I actually forget what it was like without it. So today we're going to do an interesting test. We're actually going to take this thing off. As you guys know, these are pretty easy to pop on and off. So we're actually going to take the fairing off. We're going to ride without it and see what happens and what it feels like to not have the fairing on the bike. I haven't done that almost since the day I picked it up. So it's going to be a pretty interesting test to see how comfortable it is without the fairing and what type of wind I'm actually taking while I'm riding at some of those higher highway speeds. But first, I actually want to hop on the bike, give you a little bit of an idea of what this looks like from a POV perspective. So I'm 5'6", and riding with this is very comfortable for me. What I feel like this does is it creates a little bit of a bubble of clean air. I am taking wind to the head, but it's very clean wind coming right at my head. It's not that buffeting. It's not that crazy vibration, rattling type of stuff. Gives me a little bit of protection down through the chest and midsection and arms through here. So I have been pretty happy and pretty pleased with this. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and remove it and see what riding is actually like without the fairing, because I haven't done that in so long. Give you guys a real-time perspective at some of those higher speeds at what it's like without the fairing. Alrighty guys, so as you can see, the fairing is off now. I actually really don't like that naked look up front. It's actually pretty dirty up through here as well. But anyways, I actually like the look from a looks perspective. It looks way better with the fairing, in my opinion. Alright guys, and of course before we get started, let me know some of your thoughts and opinions and feedback on fairings, things that you like, things that you don't like, things that have worked well for you, and maybe some things that haven't worked out. As far as fairings go, drop it down in the comments and let me know. So then we'll go ahead and hop on, give a little look at the POV with no fairing. Wow, it is a lot different. A little bit to get used to once you hop on there with no fairing after having it on for so long. Gives you a better look down at the road, which is always good too. But so like I said, we're going to get out on the road. We've got the fairing off completely. We're going to hit some various speeds, various different types of riding, and we're going to check in with what the wind feels like through all that type of riding with no fairing. Alrighty guys, so just a quick check in here. Not really going too fast. We're going about like 55 to 60 right here through this short little stretch. The one thing that I do notice right away is I can feel the wind on my chest a lot more. I can feel a little bit of like vibration through my jacket, if that makes sense. And that's kind of one of the things that I was expecting, is like I said before, when we were sitting on the bike, the bulk of where that fairing is like right here from the neck down to the torso. And that's where it really kind of provides me a lot of good coverage. And I can tell just through some of these like lower speeds, I've been ranging around like 40 to 60. We got a lot of traffic. We'll get on the highway here in a minute, but just through even some of these like lower to mid-range speeds, I can feel it, you know, right on my chest right here, through the chest to the stomach area. A little bit of like vibration in the jacket, which is definitely not there when the fairing is on the bike. I think that's where the bulk of the deflection of wind comes from, when the fairing is on the bike. I definitely feel it a little bit more on the arms as well. I think when the fairing's on the bike, it does a good job of kind of deflecting some of that wind outwards and around you. So like I said, not really a whole lot that I'm going to be able to tell. The real test is when we're going to get on the highway, and we're going to test it up at those higher speeds. We're going to try to get up to 65, 70, 80, maybe we'll hit 90, see how it goes, and give my comparison there. So we'll check back in once we get on the highway. All right, guys, so we just merged onto the highway here. We're just floating around like 60, 65 miles an hour in 5th gear. Hopefully we can kind of get around some of this traffic. Looks like we are open to the left lane, so let's pick up some speed and see how it goes. We are already up to 85, and yeah, the big thing I can really tell, okay, we're almost at 90 right now, right off the bat. So much wind on the chest that I'm not used to when the fairing is there, so that's one thing I can say making a really big difference. Even down at like 70, 75 miles an hour now. A lot of wind on the chest, the shoulders, the arms. A lot more comfortable with the fairing, I can guarantee you that. Alright, so let's pick it up again. We're around 85 miles an hour. Yeah, it's kind of that feeling where you kind of have that like parachute feeling. You feel like you're ballooning out, kind of having to like really grip the handlebars a lot more than I normally do. Now, the other thing I will say is the head actually feels fine. I have no problem with the wind on the head with no fairing. Alright, so we're backing off for just a second here. Alright, so we'll back it down to about 68, 70 miles an hour, and I'm still taking a lot of that wind to the chest, so that really seems to be the main theme right now at these higher highway speeds, is that fairing really does help take a lot of that wind off of the chest, makes it a lot more comfortable while riding at those higher speeds. So I can definitely say without a doubt that the fairing does work. Back up to around 88, taking a lot of that wind to the torso. Now lower speeds right here are around 60 to 65, not terrible with that wind on the chest. See if we can get some room to pick it up a little more. 70, 73, 74, 75. That's where you really start to get that parachute effect. Now, I will say if you have trouble with wind on the head, I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference. Like I said, the main thing I'm feeling is chest, arms, torso, shoulders. My head's not bobbling all over the place. It's not getting whipped all over back and forth, and that's pretty similar to with the fairing on. So the head region with wind, I would say there's not a whole lot of difference with fairing or no fairing. That really big, huge difference is on the chest, arms, and torso. Alright guys, so let's really crank it up right here. We're going to go above 90, and I am holding on for dear life right now. I can say 90 miles an hour is much more comfortable with that screen up front, without a doubt. Now, like I said before a little bit, head is actually fine, no buffeting, taking very clean air, which is totally fine, but it's the chest, shoulders, torso where you're really going to feel it. So floating again at 75, yeah, I mean, I know people do it all the time, people have traveled cross country, no wind protection, no fairing or anything like that, but some of the highway speeds that I've sustained holding 80 to 90 miles an hour for consistent stretches of highway, I just really don't know if I would want to do that with no fairing after doing this test here, knowing what I know now. So again, 85, and almost feels like I'm hanging on for dear life, guys. Alright, we're off the highway now. We will start to wrap this one up. So yeah, basically my findings were kind of somewhat like I expected, with the fairing really kind of covering a lot of my chest and torso area. Had a feeling that was where I was going to feel the bulk of the wind, and that was exactly where I felt it. And honestly, pretty uncomfortable at some of those higher speeds, specifically between 85 and 90. Holding that for a longer period of time, that would just start to really get uncomfortable with no fairing. Now, like I said, I know a lot of people do it. A lot of people will continue to do it with no problem. Just not something I'm probably interested in. I'll be throwing the fairing back on. Now, I know another question out there is going to be like, what did the head feel like? Was there like bobbleheading? Was the wind knocking my head around with no fairing? And I can say, no, it did not. It actually felt fine. Felt pretty similar to with my Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing with the cafe screen. The air feels pretty clean with or without it. So that's one piece of information to know there. The Road Warrior fairing doing a really great job of just kind of giving me more comfort, a little clean pocket of air behind the handlebars at those higher speeds of around 80 to 90 miles an hour. What I think with those taller screens, and what my experience was, is when they start to get a little bit higher, you start to displace more air, and what I've heard is that a vortex of air comes up from underneath the fairing and kind of swirls around, and that's what gives you that buffeting, that bobblehead, that vibration. So I think a lot of times maybe a smaller screen is the way to go when you're looking at some wind protection on your Softails. As always, guys, drop it down in the comments and let me know some of your feedback and opinions on fairings. What do you like? What do you don't like? What has been successful and comfortable for you all? Drop it down in the comments and let me know. That's going to wrap this one up for now. As always, thanks for stopping by. Making a good one, guys. Ride safe out there. It's the Moto John. We'll see you all on down the road. Peace.